Hello, I'm Joan Capurro, and it is my pleasure to host this segment of the Marin Women's Hall of Fame show. It's hard to imagine Marin County without the work of countless women shaping the life, culture, mores, and landscape of Marin County. From a Frank Lloyd Wright designed civic center to high-quality public schools, artworks downtown in San Rafael, vast areas of open space, innovative businesses, and a robust network of nonprofits, women have put their mark on Marin County. And Marin women's contributions go beyond our county. Honorees have been in space, to the Arctic, created social changing films, served in the U.S. Senate, and helped integrate holistic medicine in Western medical practices. Since 1987, the Hall of Fame has inducted over 125 Marin women of distinction. And today, it is my pleasure to introduce Anne Latta, who was inducted in 2013 for her work as a founder of the Hall of Fame. Welcome, Anne. Welcome.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you, too.
Now, I have some questions that I know you'll be able to answer. Tell us a little bit where your life started and what were some of your early influences in your life for what you did?
Well, I suppose the earliest influence in terms of how recognizing that somehow women and girls were treated differently was an experience I had when I was about 9 or 10 years old. A neighbor boy, 2 years older than I and bigger, was bullying me. And one day I'd had it and I just beat the tar out of him. And afterwards he went running home, told his family. They told my mother and stepfather. And my stepfather was military, and I can remember him standing in his uniform saying, "Girls do not beat up boys." And I said, "You mean I have to be pushed around because I'm a girl? Girls do not beat up boys." That was the message. So I learned from that there was going to be somehow, I was about 9 or 10, that there was some difference there that I was going to have to pay attention to from the standpoint of being able to do what I wanted to do in life.
You were brave. I've never known anybody that's done that. Good for you.
Well,
because bullying is not acceptable today.
I lost my fear. All of a sudden the fear went out the window and I just thought, I've had it. This is it. I'm not going to take this anymore. And that was that.
I love that. That's good.
So,
that's a good story. A first for me to hear. But in 1987, you co-founded the Marin Women's Hall of Fame. So how did the Hall of Fame come into existence? How did this happen? And tell us some of the ladies.
Well, I had been serving on the Commission for the Status of Women, Marin Women's Commission, I think it's called now.
That's
but
right. Yeah.
In any event, I was a commissioner from District 1, and when I resigned, another woman came in, a friend of mine, another realtor, Rita Levy, and it was she who had the germ of the idea about the Hall of Fame because of experiences that she had trying to get educational material in the schools about women. And she and Nancy Nakai worked on that. And when they couldn't make it happen, I think that's when Rita said, wait a minute, women are being left out of this historical picture of Marin, and let's do something about this. So she and Nancy Nakai, Ann Kennedy, Bonnie Huff, both of whom were from the YWCA, they called me, and Pat Warren, too, who was working as a staff for the Commission on the Status of Women. They called and asked if I would join, since I had been active in women's issues in the county. And I said, sure. So the 6 of us got together, and we all were very passionate about the idea that women simply had not been recognized. I had gone to graduate school at San Francisco State in the new school and we created the curriculum for women's studies. And I think it was Nancy, I'm not sure who, but also had a history of women in their background. And we really wanted to redress this situation. How can we do this? All right, we have to have an event that is going to be really spectacular,
right. I remember
and
some of the
honor some of these women. And so we just formulated a plan about how to do that.
It's fabulous. I can't remember where you held the first one. Do you?
We held it at Calaruga Hall at Dominican College.
Oh, nice.
And
Nice.
I remember that evening so well because my sister helped me. I was somehow or another, it fell to me to handle the event itself in terms of the decor and the candles and the flowers and all of that sort of thing. And my sister and I were lighting votives and putting flower arrangements out as people were arriving at the front door. We wanted it to look lovely and intimate, like a fine restaurant rather than a cafeteria at the college, and it really did come off well. It looked beautiful, just beautiful.
I'm sorry I missed that first one.
I know, you should have been
I was
there,
bad.
Joe.
I was wrong. Well, in fact, the first 8, let's say there was 8 the first year. Etta Allen, Business and Professions, was the first one here. And she also was the first woman in Rotary in Marin.
Oh,
Did
was
you know
she?
that? Yes,
No, I
that was
didn't know
pretty.
that.
She's a fabulous woman. Mimi Farina, of course, for arts. Patricia Hallinan, MD Medicine, and Kent Community Service. That was posthumous. Edna Muse, Community Service. Vera Schultz, Public Affairs. Elizabeth Twilliger, Education. What a fabulous person she was.
Yes,
Oh
she
my-
was.
And May Wygant, Community Service. I mean, all fabulous women. And I've noticed that every year, I know a few of them, but not all of them. And what's great about the Women's Hall of Fame is going to the event and learning about them. I love that, realizing the great things that they have done.
It's wonderful. I don't think I've never been to any of the events without shedding a tear.
Yeah, oh, no, me
Because
neither.
the paths that these women have taken and the hardships that they've endured to be able to make their mark and to be able to do what they're doing are extraordinary. Just extraordinary.
They are, yeah. I love seeing the pictures of what my friends looked like 30 years ago. And me.
Oh my God.
Tell us a little bit more about that first year, though. I mean, I can picture what you're talking about because that's what I think most of us ladies like. It's the flowers and candles, and we like elegance. It's just something that's I think we're born with. But what else happened that night? Do you remember who the MC was or the speaker?
In actual
I don't
fact,
either.
I do not. I don't.
either.
I was so involved that we knew we're going to have a full house. But, people responded to our invitations, but then, what if they did, what if you gave a party and nobody came? Well, of course it was packed. We had standing room only. And all I remember really about it is that it was a fabulous success. And we knew we had hit a nerve in the women's community and hopefully in the community at large about how important women's contributions are to your town, your community, your county, your state, your country.
That's exactly right. I heard a lot of talk about it when you were first doing it the first year, and so that just to hear the talk was great. But would you say there was 200 people there? 200 women?
At least.
Yeah.
I'd have to go back in the archives to figure out how many, but it was quite a bit. Calaruga, of course, grew too small for us as the years went by.
I know. And now this year they're going to have it at Peacock Gap, so that'll be fabulous.
Wonderful.
But it's just exciting. You've got to feel really good about just being part of something so wonderful.
Yes, it's probably the thing I'm most proudest of, because it really has had an impact. I've done other things, I can remember I had the first woman's booth at the fair, for example, in the 1970s, and we were all fighting for the ERA and, trying to talk about the ERA and about family planning rights and things like this. But that was a short-lived thing. This is an ongoing thing that we all worked for years and years and years to bring to what it now is today. So
exciting. Now that it's back to the YWCA, there's a lot happening.
That's
and there's a lot more coming.
Wonderful.
So
it's wonderful.
Thank you, God, for that. So what important traditions were established in the hall's early years that you can tell me about or tell us about?
Well, we decided that we did not want to be the typical board of directors with a president and vice president and so on and so forth. We decided we wanted to do everything by consensus.
Wonderful.
And that Pat Warren, thank heavens, was able to type out our notes, but each of us took turns taking notes at each meeting. So we rotated duties. And when it finally became necessary for us to actually form a 501c3, we just rotated the presidency. It didn't matter who was president.
No, you just had to have a president.
Yeah, we had to have one because that's what the regulations said. So one year it might be me, and the next year it would be somebody else. You know, okay, I did it last year, you do it this year, and it worked.
Yes.
It was the most. It was the most. What can I say? Cohesive group, and nobody was vying to be,
Right.
the leader.
Right.
We were all so impassioned for what we were doing that we all just worked together, and that was the best experience.
Oh, yes.
I've never been on a board or in another organization where people just, the focus was here. It wasn't about you, it was about getting this
Right.
thing done, and we did it. And
Right. I love that. That's great.
It was fabulous. It
Well,
really was.
City councils quite often pass the presidency, they change.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that you're more interested in it when you know you're going, you don't have to be part of it, but to be part of it, that's one of the jobs you'll do, just like being secretary.
Exactly.
I think that's why I love the Women's Hall of Fame so much, is what happened was about women and recognizing them. It wasn't about a specific person, and it certainly wasn't about the board. I
No.
couldn't tell from what you said. I think that's fabulous. That's great. I was going to ask you what important traditions were established in the hall's early years, and I guess that's one of them.
Yeah, it was very much, it was very democratic.
Yes.
You know, it really was very democratic, and nobody, quote unquote, ran the show. We took turns at different jobs, and I sort of fell into the getting the event put together, getting the wine for it, making sure that food, arranging the food.
You're a party planner.
Exactly, exactly, and then also fundraising.
Right. Oh, good for you. That's a tough part, really.
A very difficult job to
I
raise
know.
funds. And we were self-sustaining, you see. From our first year, we had some contributions the first year, but after that, we were self-sustaining. And then what happened, if we made any kind of profit at all, we took what we needed for the next year's seed money, and then we divided up between AAUW, the Commission on the Status of Women, and the Y, anything that was left over. So we always had money each year for what we wanted to do, and then we were able to repay the other organizations that made it possible with all their volunteers and their real support and help.
Where did you get that money, though? So you fundraise
We
as
fund
businesses? Or?
Yes, in the beginning, yes,
Foundations?
indeed. I made a lot of phone calls
Good.
to banks and title companies and
Good.
you name it.
You might want to get back on that this year. Jane would probably like that. That's fabulous. Some of this is kind of hard to ask because it's like, what are you most proud of? Just talking to you, you're just proud of what y'all did, that you did the right thing and brought women to the forefront. We didn't have that.
We did not have that. There was nothing, there were no written records of anything that women had done in the past in Marin. There just didn't exist. So we created biographies for each woman,
Right.
and then the video, this kind
I
of
love that, the
videotape.
video part.
And we had a traveling exhibit of all the women and their names, all the people who had been honored,
Right.
and that went from venue to venue. We took it around to different places, just to make people aware of women's contributions.
Well, and from the very beginning, did you have the video in the beginning of the program on each woman? You introduce them about their life from whatever age they want to give you?
We began videotaping the honorees maybe in the second or third year.
Okay, 'cause
I'm not
that's
sure.
so interesting.
Because we were evolving. We weren't
Right,
quite sure
right.
how we were going to create this living history, as it were.
Yeah.
And now things are. I hope they're still in the Antique Kent Memorial Library at the Civic Center.
We have it all, I understand.
Yeah, and so that there's always a record, and we had grand plans of getting curriculum packages into the schools and things like this, but it's kind of tough to deal with the Board of Education, not locally, but
but
statewide.
there are a lot of challenges. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
But I think Mary Jane Burke goes to this every year.
Yes,
so
she does.
She's on our side
She's
for
been
sure.
a huge supporter. Yeah.
So why is the Hall of Fame important today? Maybe not more so, but just because it's what, our 18th year, 25th, 26th year. What do you think is most important about it going forward?
I think it's very important because I'm very concerned about, in the 1970s, we all fought very hard for equal rights and for family planning rights. And the history of and that was, we were all feminists when we came in to do the Hall of Fame. Now, nationwide, I see a sort of setback, I think, for women. They're not being, we're losing some family planning rights. And I'm afraid that women now, because of the fights we fought in the 70s and earlier, in the 80s too, women now have attained a higher level in terms of jobs and in terms of status, but I'm afraid that they've forgotten or weren't aware of the fight that their mothers did or their sisters did. And now we're beginning to lose some rights, I think, and I think this new younger generation must get out there. And if the Hall of Fame can educate people about things like that, about the past and about what women fought for, then
I agree, because I'm seeing some of it too. I feel like we came a long way, but I see a few steps we've taken back.
There seems to be a movement afoot, very conservative movement to sort of push women back, maybe into the kitchens and the bedrooms, and and not
in salaries.
Yes,
and
in salaries, we still aren't on a par with men.
No, and that was just in the IJ the other day. So this is not something that is just a women's thing. Everybody knows it.
Yeah.
Well, so what are your hopes and dreams for the future of the Hall? Is there anything different that you like to throw out there, or?
I think just to continue to recognize women, to continue to have a written record as well as video and any other thing. I would love to see the women who have been honored. I would love to see their histories be part of curriculum in local schools, because I think it's important to know who locally has really made your county, or at least contributed a great deal to make the county this special place that Marin is and that we all love. And I just hope we'll go into schools somehow or another, make that part happen. That was what we didn't do. We couldn't do when I was really active, but I would love to see that. At least, one little piece of somebody's education growing up in Marin is about what women did here.
Maybe we could just take the Women's Hall of Fame women who are around now and get them into the schools to talk.
I don't know if they will.
That was a great idea. Okay, we'll have to tell Jane about this new plan.
Yes.
So just a little on the side here, you've had a successful career in real estate. So do you encourage young women to enter this field?
Oh, absolutely. It's the nice part is that I loved it. I started in 1974 and did it for 30 years. And the best part, you can make as much as you want or as little as you want. It's very hard work. I would never tell anybody, oh, it's a snap. It isn't. You work all the time. However, there's no limit on what you can do. And I didn't experience that in the business world. I graduated with a BA in English and wound up, my first job was being a secretary for $75 a week. You could be a secretary, a nurse, what else? A secretary, a nurse. There was one other thing, and of course you could get married. I mean, there was, a teacher.
Yeah,
you could be
a teacher.
I mean, that was it. And, nowadays, happily, we can do a lot more.
There weren't a lot of places. I know. My first job was at the Lyric Theater in Monrovia. Candy girl.
Yeah, right.
That's what you did.
Yeah.
I know. I had a sister in real estate, and like you say, you can make as much as you want. It was pretty tough the last few years, for sure.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult. But then there have always been
bad
those.
right now.
Yeah, apparently so. My friends tell me this is true. But it's an excellent career for anybody, but particularly for women in residential, because women, I think, sorry fellows, have a certain sensitivity to what a family needs and wants in a home.
Yeah,
So-
we see it different because usually women have spent more time, if you will. So yeah, there's, it's for men and women, and I feel that way about all businesses. But we just got to get it to a fair level.
Yes.
You love to travel.
Oh, yes.
Tell us about some of your memorable trips. You might even say something about the one you just told us earlier about.
to Saint Martin down in the Caribbean. It was very, very nice. After I graduated from college, I worked like a dog for a year at my little secretarial job, saving every penny. And I went off to Europe by myself and spent over a year there working in Paris and then in Seville. I just lucked out getting jobs. I don't know how I did that. When you're young, you just do these things.
You're not afraid of anything.
No, and I grew up in a military family, so we traveled a lot. So I really like it. And so I study French. I've been studying French for centuries now, I think, and love to go to France and love Paris and love speaking French. And I've bareboated in Tonga with a bunch of other women. We had a marvelous time. There were five or six of us women. And we went to Tonga, we had a boat that we skippered and ran. And it was so interesting because the people in Tonga kept saying, "Where is your husband?" And I kept, finally after the 50th time, I was going to say, well, we just don't have them anymore in the United States. But I decided because they would take it literally that maybe I shouldn't say that. But we had a wonderful time doing that. And that's fun. I've done a lot of sailing, and I really like
you're
that.
really big on sailing, aren't you? So,
Well, I used to be. I'm not so much anymore. The knees aren't there the same way as they were.
We'll get off that in that case.
Right.
I know what you mean about that.
Right.
Well, so like you say, you encourage women to do this. So what advice do you have for women in the community of all ages about supporting the community, say specifically, and each other?
Well, certainly
What do you
support the
say?
Hall of Fame.
Right.
And other organizations that really serve women and children in the county. I don't know if I should name things.
No,
but,
you've done. Tell us what you've done. You've worked with.
Well, I certainly support what is now called the Center for Domestic Peace.
Right.
I mean, I haven't actively volunteered there, but I do support it in other ways. And also Homeward Bound, I think, is another very good organization. And of course the food bank and all of that.
Right, yeah.
When I was a commissioner, we did a study on the needs of women and children in the county. This was back in the 1980s. And everybody thinks, oh, Marin is so rich, they don't need anything. We found countless situations in which people really needed help. And I'd like people to be more aware of that.
Yes.
That we're not this county of all rich people and so on and so forth. There are a lot of people in need, and a lot of us are in a position to volunteer or at least to donate some money, perhaps, to further their efforts.
Oh, the Center for Volunteer and Nonprofit Leadership, they did a study on that. They just finished one.
Oh, did they?
And it was the first one. It was about 5 years ago, and that's where I learned even more myself. And I was doing the community relations for Make 'em Marin. But there was a lot I didn't know, a lot of hidden stories and things that are going on that are really wonderful. And I think collaboration is the key.
Yes.
That more of these groups get together and collaborate because you do better that way.
It's really hard, though.
I know it's
years
hard.
ago, Donna Garsky, who heads up a
Women.
Center for Domestic Peace. I keep
Yes,
wanting to call it
I know, the
MWHF.
old one, I know.
But and she and I formed this sort of ad hoc thing called Action Committee for the Needs of Women, and we interviewed so many different people who were involved in different organizations because we wanted to kind of come up with some cohesion, so we wouldn't be duplicating each other's work and we could use each other's information. I don't know whatever happened to that exactly. She became very involved in MAWS then, and I in the Hall of Fame. But I agree with you. If we sort of knew what each entity is doing, we might be able to give each other more support.
We might, and we've had some mergers of some of the nonprofits. I think, Family Service Agency and Bucklew merged, and those kinds of things really help that organization. And in a ways, it helps the donor.
Yes.
because they have something just real quick called School's Rule, where every dime that you give is divided between all public school children. If it's a public school, every child gets a piece of what your donation is. Now, to me, that's collaboration.
Yes.
Because you want to give to something like that.
Yes.
And Marin's wonderful. The one thing I found is that the people love to help, donate, volunteer, and even the youth. There's a lot of requirements, isn't there, for kids in high school now? I think they have to do 100 hours a year or something like that.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so, because I think community service is really important, not just for the community, but for yourself.
Right.
So that you get out of yourself, and you're, you know, if you're working to help somebody else, then you can't think of all those silly things that we all think about and waste time worrying about.
If you have children you're having problems with, you need to get them to volunteer.
Absolutely.
It'll go away then.
Absolutely.
But it makes me think another thing about women and the Hall of Fame, and that is that the Hall of Fame was necessary because it isn't a fair playing field for the women anyway. And that's not a negative. We're working on that, but we have to work together.
Yes.
Because men and women work together, and we need to respect one another. And in the corporate world, when I see that happening, I see more success. I see much greater success when you can feel that the women and the men are getting the same breaks, if you will.
Yes.
And so I'm always impressed at how many men come to the Women's Hall of Fame.
Yes.
And I think that speaks volumes about how confident they are of who they are. They know who they are, and they respect women, and they're trying to encourage that. So,
Yes.
Any comments about that as far as the men coming to the Hall of Fame, or men you've talked to about the Hall of Fame? Do you have any?
Well, I'm just very glad that that they appear, that they come, that whether or not they're a relative of somebody that's being honored,
to show up,
or the husband of one of the founders, and they better be there. But you know, I really think it's important because you know we're all in this together.
That's exactly right.
Men and women, we're in this
exactly
together,
right.
and all of
We're
the
not
problems
separate.
in the world are. I mean, one wants to reach for solutions, but you're not going to. One sex alone isn't going to make that happen.
It is not.
Yeah, if both genders involve themselves and also learn to understand each other better.
Well, Anne, I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for sharing your incredible life with us, and thank you, viewers, for tuning in. The Marin Women's Hall of Fame is a project of the YWCA of San Francisco and Marin. If you would like to learn more about the Hall of Fame and our honorees, please visit www.ywcasf-marin.org. Thank you.